The Phoenix Suns are spending more than $400 million when factoring in the luxury tax for a roster that isn't even in the play-in tournament. To make matters worse, they won't have their own first-round pick until 2031, making the Bradley Beal trade seem like a colossal misstep. In this video, we'll also explore 3 other significant recent trades: Paul George heading to Philadelphia, DeAndre Murray moving to the Pelicans, and Julius Randle joining the Timberwolves. The Suns' decision to trade for Bradley Beal can be seen as an impulse move that wasn't necessary. At the time, it seemed confusing, especially considering that both Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are primarily scorers. While Booker's doing his best with an impressive average of 6.5 assists per game, it's worth noting that just a year prior, the Suns had a successful strategy in place. Booker even finished 4th in the MVP race, and the team racked up 64 wins before being eliminated by Luka Doncic and the Mavericks in the playoffs. The situation led to an overreaction, and the core issue with the Suns lies in their roster construction. In the Durant trade, they lost Mikal Bridges, a key defensive player who excelled in his role. The Suns opted not to retain DeAndre Ayton, but their choice to replace him with Jusuf Nurkic has not paid off, as he currently holds a negative box score plus-minus and a negative value over replacement player. KD has visibly expressed his frustration with Nurkic's performance. Beal's performance has been on a downward trend since his move to Phoenix. In 2022 and 2023, he averaged around 23 points per game. Now, at 31 years old, he's putting up just 18.2 points per game, along with 3.1 assists and 3.7 rebounds. His box score plus-minus is negative, with a player efficiency rating below 15. The troubling aspect is that the Suns sacrificed a significant portion of their future in this trade. While they technically still possess first-round picks, they won't fully own their pick until 2031. This situation leaves them vulnerable. If things go south, they won't have the means to rebuild with their own talent. Additionally, it's worth noting that Bradley Beal has a player option worth $57 million in 2027. This scenario echoes the fate of the Brooklyn Nets when they went all in on aging stars Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, trading away their future and watching as Boston thrived, drafting talents like Jaylen Brown, last year's NBA Finals MVP. Phoenix very well could be heading down a similar road. The acquisition of Paul George by the 76ers could spell trouble for Philadelphia in the long run. Looking into the future, the team does have control over all their draft picks starting in 2028. However, the downside is that George is already 34 years old and holds a player option worth over $56.5 million for that same year. The season has not started well for Philly, with a sad record of 3-14, prompting a players-only meeting where Tyrese Maxey confronted Joel Embiid, the franchise's star and former MVP, about his punctuality. Many fans point fingers at George for the team's struggles because he was expected to elevate their performance on the wing and lead them to greater success. Unfortunately, that hasn't materialized. It's ironic that he has more podcast episodes than games played. Despite some injury setbacks, the team finds itself in a precarious position at 15-20 in the Eastern Conference, and George's performance has taken a significant downturn. Last season, he was an all-star with the Clippers, averaging 22.6 points per game on 47.1% shooting. But this season, he's dropped to just 16.3 points per game, despite similar playing time. Things have been improving for Philadelphia lately. They kicked off the year with a 3-4 record, but have turned things around, going 10-5 in their last 15 games. There's still a great opportunity to gain ground and secure a playoff spot. However, let's be realistic. Simply making the playoffs isn't the ultimate ambition. The true objective is to clinch a championship with this roster. Meanwhile, we've seen the Cavaliers start the season strong, and the Boston Celtics remain a challenging presence as the reigning NBA champions. On the injury front, Joel Embiid's situation is concerning. While he possesses MVP-level talent when healthy, he only managed to play 39 games last season and has appeared in just 12 this season. On a brighter note for Philly, Tyrese Maxey, who just celebrated his 24th birthday, and Jared McCain, who transitioned from TikTok star to Rookie of the Year contender, have been standout players, though McCain recently faced a setback with a torn meniscus. Philadelphia is putting all its hopes on their star trio to secure a championship in the near future. With Embiid holding a player option worth $67 million for 2029, the team's salary cap offers little room for maneuvering. As it stands, the current roster seems insufficient, suggesting that a new strategy may be on the horizon. DeJounte Murray's trade to the Pelicans stands out as the most intricate deal on this list. At his peak, DeJounte showcases all-star potential. In 2022, he was indeed an all-star for the Spurs, boasting impressive averages of 21.1 points, 9.2 assists, 8.3 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. However, his transition to the Hawks proved to be a poor fit alongside Trae Young. Now with the Pelicans, he finds himself in another challenging situation, often being the sole true playmaker on the floor. While he is undoubtedly a talented player, labeling him as an elite playmaker might be an overstatement. The top-tier superstars in the NBA can seamlessly adapt to any team, but Dejounte appears to be more suited as a potentially excellent third option, provided he has the right supporting cast. Unfortunately, he hasn't had that opportunity recently. A notable difference in his performance is evident when comparing last season's average of 22.5 points per game to his current 15.8 points per game, all while shooting 36.6% with similar playing time. There's still plenty to appreciate about his game, particularly at the point guard position where he's putting up impressive numbers: 7.5 assists and 6.5 rebounds per game, along with 2.4 steals. Unfortunately, the Pelicans are struggling significantly, sitting at a dismal 5-29 record. To acquire Dejounte, they had to part ways with Dyson Daniels, who's quickly emerged as one of the NBA's most underrated young talents this season. Currently, Dyson's averaging 12.9 points, 5.1 rebounds, 3.6 assists, and an eye-popping 3.1 steals per game. The last player to maintain over 3 steals per game for an entire season was Alvin Robertson back in 1991. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Hawks have been one of the biggest surprises in the league, boasting an 18-16 record with a youthful starting lineup that includes 30-year-old Clint Capella, 26-year-old Trae Young, 23-year-old Jalen Johnson, 21-year-old Dyson, and 19-year-old Zachary Risacher. While DeJounte Murray's a solid player with an advantageous contract of just over $30 million a year until 2028, the Hawks have opted for a younger roster that's performing better, while the Pelicans find themselves older, struggling, and lacking a clear identity. The Minnesota Timberwolves took a significant risk by trading Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, along with a first-round draft pick. Typically, a team that's won the Western Conference with a competitive roster and a rising star like Anthony Edwards, who's approaching his prime, would avoid making such bold moves. Last year, Towns was an all-star for Minnesota and has been a foundational player for the franchise for many years. This season, he might be an all-star starter for the Knicks in the Eastern Conference, boasting impressive averages of 24.9 points, 13.7 rebounds, and 3.3 assists per game. Towns is arguably enjoying the best season of his career in New York, where the Knicks currently hold a 24-10 record, placing them third in the East. On the other hand, Timberwolves fans are now experiencing what can only be described as the Julius Randle phenomenon. Randle's performance has been a mixed bag. He's averaging 20.2 points, 7 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. But at 30 years old, his overall stats have declined compared to last season. But Randle's playing D for the Wolves. I've never witnessed him take on that role before, and it's impressive to see him giving it all for the team. In Julius Randle's 2 playoff appearances, he averaged 18 points per game, with a shooting percentage of 29.8% in 2021. And in 2023, he managed 16.6 points per game at 37.4% shooting. While some might say the Timberwolves had to part ways with Karl Anthony Towns due to salary constraints, the truth is they were trying to steer clear of the second apron. They had options to either keep him or trade away other contracts to avoid that situation. Injuries certainly contributed to Randle's playoff difficulties, and on top of that, Dante DiVincenzo hasn't met the expectations of Wolves fans. He's currently averaging only 10 points per game, with a shooting percentage of 38.9%, and his advanced stats like true shooting percentage, win shares per 48 minutes, and box score plus-minus have all taken a hit compared to last season. The immediate takeaway is that it's a significant win for the Knicks, while the Wolves are left wanting. However, in the NBA, especially this early in the season, things can shift dramatically, and there's always a chance for redemption.